Hi, my name is Hannah Jane Pritchett, current U of A GIST Master's student. Welcome to the University of Arizona GIST podcast. Our host is Chris Lukenbiel, and today he will be chatting with John Baskett and Chris Bertrand of the San Xavier District of the Tohono O'Odham Nation. Let's get started.
Hi, my name is Chris Lukenbiel. I'm the director of the GIST programs here at the University of Arizona. And for today's GIST podcast, we're sitting with John Baskett and Chris Bertrand of the San Xavier District of the Tohono O'Odham Nation. And they are the two people most involved with the GIS efforts for the San Xavier District. So we're really delighted to have you. John is the principal planner for the San Xavier District, and Chris is the GIS analyst for the district and also an alumni from the MS GIST program from 2017. So we're delighted to have you both with us today. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having us. Good.
And I should mention, and we can get into it a little bit, John, but I really appreciate your ongoing community support for the GIST programs through internships, working with the community, getting involved with the GIS co-op, and hiring alumni is always a big plus for us too. So it's great to show how community and networks work, and I think that's one of the themes of this. But I'm excited to have you guys on because and John, you know this better than I do, but the work of, I guess you call it Native American GIS in the state of Arizona is quite a big topic, and something that comes up and is a specialty group, I believe, with Esri as well too, isn't it?
That's correct.
That you're involved with. But let's start first with what do you do? What do you guys do at the San Xavier District kind of related to GIS? Maybe I'll start with you, John. What does a principal planner do, and how does it coordinate with GIS for the district?
Yeah, so me being the principal planner, there's a lot of tie-overs to land use. The biggest aspect of urban planning is land use. And everything to do with land use relates to maps. So myself, I oversee utility infrastructure development, land use. I also oversee our surveying and mapping department. We oversee commercial development on the district, the development review process, as well as incorporate community consensus in all our decision making. But part of planning really involves spatial use of the district. So really, GIS, when I came into San Xavier District, we didn't have GIS capabilities. And my previous background working for Coconino County in Flagstaff area, I became quite familiar with the benefits of using GIS in a jurisdictional setting. So I really wanted to pursue that avenue here at San Xavier District to develop a strong GIS. And partnering with you guys was the first step in that. So there's a lot of tie-over to GIS within the planning field. It's just, they go together. And my background is quite complex, I guess you could say. I've worked in archaeology, anthropology, worked on various excavations across the world from Bulgaria to Israel. And I made a shift over to urban planning, but my degree is urban planning / GIS, so it's a double degree. So I do have exposure to many levels of GIS. And that's kind of my background and kind of what I do here at San Xavier District. I'll turn it over to Chris.
How about you, Chris? What is your daily tasks and life as a GIS analyst look like for the San Xavier District?
So a constant is always producing maps that somebody needs on demand. But in between these requests, it's collecting spatial data in the field. It's incorporating new data into the database, and it's from a variety of sources, whether it's a geodatabase or shape file that somebody's already produced that you're bringing in, or it's a copy of an old document from 1887 with the units and chains. It's keeping up with new software updates, software specific to GIS is up to me to maintain, and finding out new applications that will help us with whatever we do throughout the district.
Cool. John, you mentioned something that I think would be of a lot of interest to some of the listeners, which is a district that is just starting their GIS efforts, and sort of like some of the things that you've had to do or consider to like basically implement a full GIS. It's very different than, say, walking into an agency that already has GIS. And so I think that how the logic of going through that process is something that is, you only learn it by doing it, if you know what I mean. And so I'm kind of curious of, like, you mentioned that, yes, you did reach out to me and the community of GIS professionals in Tucson. You talked to the city of Tucson, I know. But like, what were some of the basic things that you did when you were thinking about the implementation for your district?
Well, it's really a multi-tiered process. And I guess to start with, I'd really like to praise the connection that I had with you and the GIS program at U of A. I really feel that was a very strong point. You provided us some interns who were very, very, very knowledgeable. Chris Bertrand was one of those interns. So when we first started this process, I mean, you come to a jurisdiction that has zero capabilities for GIS, and let alone the enterprise system that we have now was non-existent. There was nothing. There was not even a single GIS program on a computer. So a lot of our building of this effort came with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I happened upon an email that the Bureau of Indian Affairs has monies set aside for all tribal jurisdictions to develop their GIS program. And this is really big. And I think that I would really like other tribal entities to know this, if they're not aware of this, that the Bureau of Indian Affairs does have monies and services set aside for all tribal entities to develop their GIS. They will supply the programs, they have various options for programs for however you want to design your GIS setup. And there are various ways to do it. You could have single use on each computer. The route that we decided to go, and Chris Bertrand and I really kind of put our heads together and thought of what is the best way that we can have GIS for each employee in San Xavier District. And we threw around options of everybody having single use on their computer, or other options that were out there. And really, the enterprise setup was the direction ultimately that we would go. Mm-hmm. And this required acquiring a server. And so we acquired a server. Once we acquired the server, we weren't aware of all the intricacies of setting up enterprise. And I'll tell you what, this has been a learning curve for both of us. While trying to set this up, we created a mentorship through various entities. We used mentorship from City of Tucson, Pima County, Pima Association of Governments, the Ak-Chin Indian community. And I'd really like to give praise to John Jansen from Ak-Chin Indian community. They were a really good mentor for us because as far as GIS for a jurisdiction goes, Ak-Chin is very advanced. They are on another level, and we really kind of modeled a lot of our architect design after what they had previously designed for themselves. We had various meetings with jurisdictions all across the greater Tucson area. We're really happy because we've actually created over 80 layers thus far. Nice. I mean, that's really impressive. Going from 0 to 80 layers is quite impressive. They range from anything from utility corridors to allotment boundaries, tribal land boundaries, home sites, floodplain information. It's really been a process, and I definitely like to say that the U of A GIST program was the first start to that.
So, Chris, when you got hired there, it seems like the skills from the 2017 class were probably put directly to use. Did you find that we trained you well enough to get thrown straight into the fire pit of starting a GIS with John from the ground up?
Well, setting up the architecture of the enterprise system was entirely new, but working with the data and the presentation of it was all covered in the coursework, so it helped a lot.
Oh, that's great. How about Chris, for you, John mentioned that you were one of the interns that started. Did you do the intern when you were a student in the program, or was that after you graduated?
Bit of both.
Yeah.
Technically, I did an internship with the Tucson Audubon Society.
That's right.
But there was only so much GIS experience there. But they let me have use of just a lot of data. So, I did a study on the locations and relationship of bird species in the Tucson area to the urban landscape.
But I guess I'm curious on I think you're a great example of the proven track of an internship can be very beneficial to your career. And I think for both of you, I guess it's an open-ended question on, like, John, why did you even think of interns as a place to start? And Chris, why would you even volunteer for and I'm guessing, I think both of them were unpaid, I think, originally to start. Like, why would you put yourself out there for an unpaid intern and volunteer your time? I mean, yes, I'm asking it, expecting that you'll answer them appropriately, but you know what I mean? It's a bit of a stretch for both of you. You're putting yourself out there. What's the value of internships as you see them? Maybe I'll start with you, John, on this.
Well, me coming from, so my background, like as I keep touching on, my first vocation was actually in archaeology, and part of archaeology, the big part of getting up in archaeology is getting the field experience. And often in archaeology, if you're lucky enough to even get on an excavation, you often have to pay for field experience. So you can have that in your resume that you've actually partaken on a certain number of excavations. So from the very early on, I kind of saw the bonus of being involved voluntarily on projects, because that's kind of from the ground up, and being involved where you're not getting paid. You actually work a lot harder to learn more about that location. So coming into jurisdictional work, and I've worked in engineering and planning both in a jurisdictional level. I've also done interning myself, and through those internships, I really was afforded the opportunity to learn about that particular vocation the most I could, and it benefits both parties. There's a certain niche of work that needs to be filled, and the unpaid intern, it provides that person a perfect opportunity to learn at a slower pace and get things done, but really develop themselves into a valued employee. And that person can take that experience and go anywhere. And if you look at most job applications, usually what you see is they want a certain level of experience. You look at an application and at a job posting, and usually they will 2 years experience minimum. Often that's acquired through internships.
Yeah, on my part, I can say it was something of a no-brainer. one of my regrets during my undergraduate career was I focused on coursework and didn't really look into internships during that time. So when it came to looking for work, previously, I should say that I've had a career change from field biology to GIS. So throughout all the job hunts previously, without that job experience, you are probably two rungs down amongst all the applicants without that experience. Lacking that, initially in field biology, and then with the career change to GIS, I'm starting afresh in a new field. So my previous field biology work doesn't exactly obviously qualify me for pure GIS work. So from that, an internship was obvious.
Yeah, and I was thinking the San Xavier District is, and I think you told me this, John, is the most urban of the Tohono O'odham districts. And so in some ways, I would see a lot of your enterprise GIS layers and issues or complexity being similar to other urban jurisdictional entities, but then you're also uniquely different. You are your own nation, a district in a nation that has separate rules, policies, procedures, and all that. Can you speak to anything to those similarities and differences, maybe both of you, on something that is more unique to your environment that you're building up in terms of your GIS?
Yeah, so basically the San Xavier District is considered what's called peri-urban. So peri-urban is a phenomena of a jurisdiction or a community that borders a big community. So you're kind of on the fringe of being rural, but you're right on the border of a very urbanized area. And the San Xavier District borders the city of Tucson. So speaking to land use is quite different in a tribal setting, contrasting against, say, your typical jurisdiction like City of Tucson or City of Phoenix, or even City of Flagstaff. So basically, in a typical jurisdiction, land use, you'll have your parcels. You'll have, if you own a home, it's designated a certain parcel number, and you have your parcel can be either commercial, it can be residential. But here in San Xavier District, it's very unique. We have allotments. So allotments are allotted land that were designated to certain tribal community member families in this area at a certain time. So basically with the allotments, you'll have several hundred allotments. And what happens is those allotments start to gather a lot more allottees as generations pass. So some allotments have as many as a couple hundred allottees on them. And those are specific to the allotments. We also have something called tribal land. And tribal land is different than allotted land, as is there's no family designated for that allotted piece of land. And it's owned by the Tohono O'Odham Nation. And so basically the Tohono O'Odham Nation, there are 11 districts, and they're one of them. And so tribal land exists primarily throughout most of the Tohono O'Odham community. San Xavier District is unique as we are the only district with allotted lands. So once upon a time when the Bureau of Indian Affairs designated this land to the families, it was only done here in San Xavier District. Initially, San Xavier District was the only reservation. It was the first reservation here. So it's historic in that sense. But as the rest of the Tohono O'Odham Nation developed, they didn't do the allotments there. So, we are unique in that way. And it is quite similar in the ways of, if you go into the city of Tucson, you have utility easements, you have access easements, you have various right-of-ways that are designated. And one thing that we're doing here at San Xavier District is we're really strengthening our designation of right-of-ways and utility easements and various utility corridors. And basically, it's that phenomena it serves a purpose. So you have a parcel, you have an area that's designated for a utility. You don't want to build a home right on top of it. You want it to be an appropriate distance from a home and from the road. And so part of our planning, and which Chris Bertrand has been a central part of, is developing these right-of-ways. And GIS is a very powerful tool for that, for illustrating where things are to go and where things currently exist and where we hope them to be. So we've definitely used it to our advantage, and we continue to use it for our growth here on that respect.
So for you, Chris, when you're dealing with the the day-to-day management of the database and the enterprise system, are you seeing, I mean, I know that you haven't worked in the city, but maybe with past examples, can you think of, I like for me, the understanding of what allotments are, or tribal land is very unique kind of land use pattern that I would not be familiar with. Are you learning some new geographies by being with the San Xavier District?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I hadn't had previous exposure to is, we'll call it the taxonomy of legal description from surveyors. And that's been really interesting, applying it to property boundaries, right-of-way descriptions, all sorts of legal areas.
Are you using, is township and range used in your district? Or is that the only method for property legal description, or is there other on tribal land?
Thus far, primarily has been based on township and range sections.
Okay.
And the center north corner, sort of splitting up within the sections, and at times, heck, I need to refer to a cheat sheet when it comes to figuring out exactly where a traverse starts out.
Oh wow.
And we go off of all Arizona survey standards. So basically, the in the sense of township and range, it is very similar across the nation for land use patterns there, and basically all legal descriptions developed are definitely designed to tie into the broader grid. I guess where it differs is the actual use of it and the designation of it being either like allotted land or tribal land, in comparison to, say, other jurisdiction where you have parcels and you have commercial, residential parcels, so on and so forth. Like, and we also have our version of open spaces, and many cities have their designation. We have our version of that.
So with let's say like within the land use classification system, or I guess, do you also have a land zoning, like what the uses can be and what's been determined by law or policy by the nation itself? Are those like informed in the geodatabase as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely have our use designation ranging from rural, residential to farming to commercial. We do have several archaeological zones that are basically, there's a lot of archaeology out here, and this is a very important thing here because this community has been here for thousands of years.
Okay.
It's San Xavier District was initially called WAC Community, and WAK. And the WAC community has literally been here for thousands of years. So the archaeological remains in this area it's very vast. So part of the culture is really respecting where this archaeology is found. So incorporated in our GIS is a way to delineate where these zones are at. So in your typical city, you're not going to see archaeological zones. That's not a common thing. You will not see that. When they do their full NEPA process for development, like say in a commercial project in a typical jurisdiction, if there's archaeology found, then they'll find a way to mediate that. But with us, if we have a zone that's heavily archaeological, we designate that as a heavy archaeological zone, and there's no other use there. It maintains its kind of open space status. So, there are different things about our land use here that you won't see in the typical jurisdiction.
Is there any unique issues with the mission itself in terms of mapping and coordinating efforts? Or is that just like archaeological site, like a historic designation with use and management issues? Does it vary any with the San Xavier mission?
Not really. It is a historic site, but they kind of the mission operates out of it's a diocese operates. They operate their own I guess parcel, and it's really not much different. There's nothing really that we some of our planning goes around the mission. So recently we've partaken on a project where we were looking at lighting feasibility. Really interesting project. So GIS is able to illustrate the light projection range. So we used GIS to model a certain bulb type and where it would project around, say, the mission and the roads near it. So we do many projects around the mission and that would serve the mission, but directly on the mission, they kind of have their own planning.
Okay, so it's like a subunit that's dealt with.
Right.
Within the enterprise itself, are you what are you guys working on right now? What is your big GIS project? Let me ask Chris this one. What are you working on right now, Chris? What's your big GIS project that's taking up your time?
Immediately, I gotta say, I am dredging records for all sorts of right-of-ways, easements, reaching out to utility organizations, Arizona Department of Transportation, all sorts, just to get all this worked into our enterprise system so that it's available to all the various departments that need.
And what would you say that use is for the departments and for the district to know, like, the location of easements? What value do you see that as having for them?
Well, you gotta know where they are if you plan to do anything on easements. I mean, that's the whole purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I have much more than that.
So you're working on easements. Is this part of the utility system efforts for easements as well, so that you'll be able to document what is there in terms of where you can find it in the district? And because there's also a legal issue with it too, with property rights and having easement, right?
Yeah, so keep in mind, because our system is so young, we're still filling in portions that, say, the city of Tucson has had established for easily a decade or more. But it will also help access of these documents. They'll be able to look up a particular grant of right-of-way, click on it, and pull up the documents associated with it.
And to touch on what Chris is talking about, one thing in a typical jurisdiction, like let's take City of Tucson, for example, you'll have a right-of-way department within, say, Public Works. Yeah. And you'll have a right-of-way agent that's usually designated for right-of-way acquisition. So when the city does acquire a right-of-way, it gets surveyed, and that survey goes into the county recorder's office, and the county recorder holds that information which then usually the GIS department takes and incorporates it in their data. Here on San Xavier District, there's never been a recorder per se. So something that we're trying to manifest is that position of a recorder, A, B, something temporary in the meantime where we have sort of a rough recording database. And so Chris's function, it's really interesting. He has been filling in a role of a recorder of sorts, creating databases. And it's really interesting experience to get when you're in a jurisdiction like this and you're starting GIS from the ground up. You're able to kind of jump between roles you normally wouldn't do in another jurisdiction. You kind of be pigeonholed into certain specific tasks, but you usually wouldn't get to take the role of, say, a recorder. And recently, Chris has been undertaking that.
So I'm kind of curious in terms of right-of-way or similar types of issue where, I mean, the San Xavier District is quite large. I mean, it looks to be, comparable. It's a little smaller than the city of Tucson, but if we got rid of the main part of the city of Tucson, it's comparable to that in size. You have a large open space more on the western side, it appears, if we just generally look at a satellite. But you have some uses that are like that are not permanent, or that could be like I'm thinking of the mining on the south side. That partially is on the district, but that is what the operation is not run by the Tohono O'odham Nation, is it?
It's not.
Is the casino? The casino is part of the district too, right? The Casino of the Sun, and that's not owned. It's owned by the district, but not run by it. Is that correct? Is that so? I guess I'm curious on how the property issues relate in terms of mapping and for ownership by the nation versus allowing external entities to be on the property of the nation and or district. Can you speak to that at all, John?
Yeah. So basically, the casino is owned by the nation. So when I say by nation, what I mean is the Tohono O'odham Nation. So us being a district, we're a separate government than the Tohono O'odham Nation. We're under the Tohono O'odham Nation, but we have our own chairman, we have our own vice chairman, we have our own planning department, so on and so forth. So basically, that land that the casino is on a specific allotment. And,
got it. Okay.
Yeah, and it's owned and operated by the Tohono O'odham Nation, and the district, kind of similar into how we talked about the emission, they kind of run their own planning and whatnot there, but we plan infrastructure around them. So we do with the roads that are around the casino, the stop signs, the stoplights, the road improvement. We kind of facilitate and oversee that.
How about the mine on the south side? How does that function within a land use system for you? Is that
similarly? They're kind of it's basically a lease that they have, and Chris has been very involved with gathering data of various sort of uses that they have as far as utilities. There's utility corridors that kind of go in that area. And we're trying to document as many as we can. And Chris has been involved with a lot of research regarding that.
So what kind of GIS do you work with, Chris, when it relates to the mining operation within your district?
Mostly what the district has direct involvement in. So the leases, because of correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, John, but because the allotments are to individuals in trust through the United States, the lease is to those individuals of the allotments rather than through the district.
Oh, got it. Okay. So it becomes a sub land use issue within allotment.
Correct.
Okay. So most of the I guess with land use planning with the urban for your district would be more on the northern tier. Like how far, what was is it Valencia Road where the district ends, or is that too far north?
That's too far south, actually. The district has a panhandle that goes up to
Drexel.
Drexel. So basically, the most north point of the district, the panhandle, is Drexel.
Okay,
And,
I guess kind of following up Mission Road through there.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Because there seems to be but like a land use pattern you can see from space of how the parcels are laid out, varying on Tohono O'odham land, where you see farming, for instance, or you see you don't see the grid suburbanization quite as much. Do you have developers come in and develop whole tracts or is that something that's done by the nation itself in terms of how does urbanization work with you guys in terms of the GIS work? Have you had any recent suburbanization developments?
That's a really good question. And actually, before I get to that, I'd like to talk about the farming that you saw. When we were talking about land uses, I kind of forgot to touch on that. The farming is it's basically on allotments, but there's an entity called the San Xavier Farm Cooperative, and it has board members, and basically they oversee all the farming in that area where you visually see the farming on the GIS or on Google Earth or wherever you look. And similarly, like the mine, they're kind of their own sort of, they manage their own land there. And I guess my plug for them is if you haven't visited the San Xavier Co-op Farm store, please do. They have very many locally grown veggies and lots of cool things they're selling there. They have really good food. Definitely worth stopping by and checking out. Back to the question of suburbanization. That's a really good question. So it's done in a couple of different ways. So I'll give you an example of something we're working with right now. You have a community member who wants to build a new home on a piece of land, and we have a housing department, and we have our planning department, and our natural resources department, and we have a committee that gets together, and we decide where the best spots on the district are to develop home sites. And these home sites, we have the Indian Health Services that develop as far as the sewer infrastructure goes. We have Tohono O'odham Utility Authority, and they supply the power and the water. And so we have various meetings where we decide the best spot for any new home site applicants, where we would put them, where they would go develop their homes. And often, that cost is upon the applicant. And there is an entity in the Tohono O'odham Nation called the Kiki Association. And what they do is they give basically loans, and they will build homes for these home site applicants. And they usually there's a list that they're put on, and they go through a couple of different interviews and so on and so forth. And so they develop independently individual homes. But in addition to that, this same entity, Kiki Association, they also develop subdivisions. And currently there's I think it's a 9 or 10 home, maybe 12 home subdivision that's being developed right off of a road here called Gakwak. So the road is a really interesting name. It's a traditional Tohono O'odham name, but the road is called Gakwak, and they're developing a subdivision off of that. And so, it does happen where there are homes built here. As far as commercial development, that's something that's a goal of the district to develop more commercial. And one of the major, I guess, visions the district has is developing a marketplace here. And that's currently under talk.
Oh, cool. That's neat to hear. What are your biggest challenges moving forward with your enterprise GIS, Chris? What are you looking forward to trying to take on, or when maybe the easements are mapped? I guess nothing is ever completed. We all get that. But what's your next round of GIS projects you're looking at jumping into?
Probably increasing our capabilities for field data collection. At the moment, for sake of security, our GIS is just within our not administration per se, but within all our departments, rather than out on the internet in any way. So in that way, bringing the advantages you get to like having a ARC online, being able to and send it through that, we aren't able to do. So we're ideally looking for like VPNs to go from field device to our enterprise system, rather than write down every bit of data and enter it by hand.
Got it. So the field data collection would be a next step for you guys. Is there a need, John, to take this back to your community members? Like to have like what Chris was saying, a public portal for your district? Is that something hopeful in time, or is it better to not have it and to just use it administratively? What's the district's goal or larger goal in that sense?
So there's a really great project actually that I'd like to talk about that we actually started before the onset of COVID. So most jurisdictions, due to just the vast size of them, it's very hard to undertake a sort of project where you get a sort of community. It's like a census project, but it's more of a community survey. In many jurisdictions, it's kind of impossible just because of sheer size and population. So generally in the realm of planning, most jurisdictions will create something called a general plan or comprehensive plan. And what guides that general comprehensive plan is vision from the community. So what happens is many jurisdictions will create meetings for community members to come over and give their input on how they see the vision of that jurisdiction going. And that gets incorporated into the general or comprehensive plan. General plan and comprehensive plan is basically the same thing. And so every jurisdiction has a general plan or a comprehensive plan. A project that we recently conducted it's very, very cool. So we started a community survey project, and basically we're gathering crucial data about every single household in the San Xavier District. I mean, we want to get information as vast as what issues they have with their home, if they themselves have physical mobility issues, what their level of education is, how many people live in the home. Basically, almost a full-on community census type project. We're looking for things like if they believe that they have adequate access to the sun shuttle, which comes through the district, or if they feel there's pest problems on the district, if they want community, they want lighting in their streets, if they want a community park near them. We have about a 10-page questionnaire where we started to gather a lot of this information. And it's really a vital project because what it does is it allows us to geo-reference a lot of this data that correlates with each household. So say we want to click on a layer that shows all the households on the district that approve of community lighting. Boom, we have all that information available. So it's more powerful than actually a general comprehensive plan because we have real-time data of all the individuals who approve of a certain action the district is to take. Like say we want to improve a couple of roads. we click on a layer that shows the amount of people who approve of improvement on these certain roads, and it illustrates all that. Chris brought some of that data in. I can kind of show you a screenshot. So to further talk about this community survey, it's really, it's a very important project because it really allows, it's a combination, there's no better hybrid of community planning and GIS than this project. It really allows us to take on the community's vision. We plan the community. And a really interesting story, last summer, Chris Bertrand and I were in San Diego at the Esri User Conference, and I attended an executive session. Sitting next to me was Jack Dangermond, creator of Esri. And it was really cool because I got a chance to talk with him about our project of this community survey, and his eyes lit up. He was really impressed with what we're doing. And he actually walked me around the conference to meet Dolores Huerta. So Dolores Huerta is the partner of Cesar Chavez. So they're part of the big political movements in California. And so basically he wanted me to link up with the Dolores Huerta Foundation because he believed that they had a certain app that they developed that would help us with this community survey project. So pretty interesting story. Jack Dangermond really approved of the project, and he linked me up with the Dolores Huerta Foundation. So, you know, I think it's not a very common approach to fusion of planning and GIS, but it's a really great project.
Well, it sort of fits in with Jack's and Esri's drive for geodesign as well too, and how to use spatial data to inform better decisions in districts and as well. So yeah, we'd love to see some of this work that you're doing on the community project. I think it's a great example of how perception and understanding people's preferences can better inform land use decisions and how to use that spatially.
Yeah, and you know, I have a visual to look at regarding this this dashboard that Chris created. Very unique. So basically, this dashboard will give you a graph of all the phenomena that I previously discussed about, you know, the data associated with each home. So I'm going to share my screen with you real quick.
So, as probably everybody is familiar with the Esri dashboards, what with everybody using it to track COVID levels across states, created a dashboard for our community survey data, making graphs, charts, numbers, all directly linked to the map of our residences in the community. Makes it really simple and fast for anybody trying to get a handle on any one of the questions from the survey. Really easy.
And as you can see on the dashboard here, Chris, are you able to see this?
Yes.
So what's illustrated here, just a couple examples of some of the questions that we asked in the questionnaire. And this is based around homes with physical mobility issues. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we were only able to get about 10 or 15% of the community. COVID just hit when we started this project. And so it kind of stopped us in our tracks, but the little information we did gather, this is a good example of what we're looking to do with it. And these specific questions here are specifically to homes with physical mobility issues, houses built by decade, the condition of the home. And it's really great to be able to have this dashboard, you know, specifically for grants. You know, when we go to look for grants for, you know, home improvement projects around San Xavier District or so on and so forth, we have all the data right here. It's all aggregated. We can provide these graphs. We can provide this within the grant parameters. So, you know, it's a really, really cool way to use GIS.
Fun. So are you going to try to adapt it for COVID use to try to continue with the survey work, or is that kind of problematic right now in the community?
We really, person to person is the way to get this done, because
Yeah.
door to door, there's a reason why the U.S. Census Bureau does go door to door, because the participation level on mail-in questionnaires or just anything on the phone, it's never as accurate. You don't get as much participation. I was told that when it comes to mail-in questionnaires and surveys, 10% is a good amount to get back of any sort of questionnaire that's sent out. That's pretty bad. So if 10% is considered successful, we don't want that. We really want to be able to gather data from every single household, because this data is going to be used to plan our community better in accordance with the way the community sees this, their vision of how we move forward. And unfortunately with COVID, it kind of limits our ability for that. So we really want to wait until things get a little better with COVID before we can.
That makes sense. So what other current projects are you working on that in terms of have an impact with the use of GIS that you're excited about right now?
Well, there's a really cool project that we're moving forward with that basically we currently have no community parks in San Xavier District. We were recently awarded a grant for the development of a park, and we're working with Arizona State Parks to through a partnership to develop a first ever community park. And through GIS, we've really been allowed to model the various locations we're looking at things like floodplain information, just the contours, looking at data associated with the if it's an allotment, if it's not an allotment, if it's on tribal land.
Yeah.
So GIS is kind of crucial to move forward with the development of the first ever community park.
Yeah, it covers things like we're able to look at things like how many houses are close to a given location, what kind of utilities can we tap into at a given location, and we mentioned archaeological locations. We have to be careful of those when selecting an area for a park. So we're able to look at just about everything for what location would be best.
Something we're looking to do too is really enhance our imagery here in the district. And Chris Bertrand has really been looking into getting his drone license. And we really want to get better imagery and acquire a drone. So just that really kicks up our game here. We're able to plan things a lot better, to visually see things better. And we had a really good mentor, as I mentioned before, through Auction Indian community, John Jansen. They kind of showed what they're able to do through their drone, and we really want to do that. It's cool.
I mean, the advantage of having your own drone program, not only can you get better resolution than you can get from generally publicly available data like through the USGS, you're also able to acquire it far more frequently, pretty much at need. Yeah. So if we have a particular project, we could get and refresh any imagery we needed in the area under consideration, rather than say, wait the next 2 years for the new native imagery to be available.
Yeah.
Some other pretty cool things we're doing too. So currently we've been providing boundary and address books for the Tohono O'odham Police Department and the Tohono O'odham Fire Department. So often what happens, this kind of touches on your question, Chris, about being so close to another jurisdiction. How does land use work? Well, one thing that frequently happens is discrepancy in jurisdiction. So basically, if you have an accident and say it's right on the border of San Xavier District and City of Tucson, sometimes it's not known whose jurisdiction it is. And so the Tohono O'odham Police Department kind of comes to us to kind of look at the accuracy of where that accident happened and if in fact it is on tribal jurisdiction or it's on in the city of Tucson. So we're looking to make a sort of better maps and try to work with Tohono O'odham Police Department and Tohono O'odham Fire Department, so they have that knowledge ahead of time. You know, they go out and there's an accident, they know exactly where it's at, and they know if it's on tribal jurisdiction or if it's in the city of Tucson.
Who's been your big users in terms of units within the district to date right now?
I'm sorry, what was that question, Chris?
I was curious on who the biggest users for your GIS work that you've done to date. You mentioned that like the fire department and the police department. Are there other big users that have been hitting you up regularly right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Tohono O'odham Police Department and the Tohono O'odham Fire Department, I should probably clarify, they're still under the Tohono O'odham Nation. Even though they're here on the district, they're under the Tohono O'odham Nation governance.
They're central.
So although our GIS doesn't quite tie in with theirs, we provide them data because we have the most accurate data. But departments within the district, it's being used by over 62 employees right now. Pretty incredible, thanks to the enterprise system.
Oh, nice. Is there any relations between districts and the nation with mapping efforts? Do you have to coordinate up a scale as well, or is that something kind of in the works?
Currently, it's separate. So the Tohono O'odham Nation, they have their own, I guess, GIS person. And it's very separate right now. Eventually, we would like to coordinate for more efficient use, but as I mentioned before, it's different. It's a different governance, so it would be similar to coordination with like city of Tucson. We want everybody to be on the same page. We want that data to be shared so everybody has an accurate portrayal of what's happening. So that is our goal in the future. It's one baby step at a time, and this thing is definitely in its infancy.
Oh,
so.
Well, it's been great to chat with you both, John and Chris, and it's great to see successful alumni out there making change in the world and seeing some wonderful new GIS work being done. So we do encourage all podcasters out there to go down to the food co-op at the San Xavier District right near the Mission. And check it out. It's open during COVID times too. Get some flatbread at the Mission while you're there. Maybe stop by. Let Chris and John know you're coming if you want to visit them. But thanks again for sharing some of the work you're doing. We're really excited to see what you're up to and to learn more about you as you develop in time.
Yeah, and thank you, Chris, for having us. I'd just like to reiterate the thank you for partnering with you to get our interns here, because I really believe you guys have a great educational system where Chris came with so much knowledge and really was crucial to everything that we've talked about today. So I really would like to thank you again, Chris. It's been great.
It's good to see you, Chris. Let me know how things are going for you, and happy mapping. I'm kind of curious I can't wait for the next tour of the enterprise system. Maybe when COVID lifts, we'll do a co-op and you can highlight where you guys are at. It should be nice to see.
Absolutely. Good.